Hello, everybody. I'm going to do the podcast today from the Buckets of Love on Power and Control. Each relationship that we have is based on either power and control or love. And some have a variant of each, but with some people they come from love and with some people they come from power and control. It's just the way they operate. There can be mixtures, but I think most people have one way or the other. When we first get into the love relationship, we're coming from love. Everything's love and we'll do anything for them, and it's really quite beautiful because we're coming from love. So everything we do is coming from that space. And that's what I want you to understand, that's why at the beginning it's so wonderful, because we're coming from that space. However, as time passes, our actual intuitive nature, who we really are, can start working. And therefore, if we are a person who comes from love, it will continue like that. However, if our nature is to come from power and control, and we always put that above love, that's going to start really becoming manifest in your relationship. It's important to understand that we all like to have a little bit of power and control. Humans are like that. Some like a lot, some don't need as much. And once you get in a relationship, you'll really notice that it starts to impact on your relationship, how you each treat each other. When you first start and you're both coming from love, you might see occasional little power trips or control things happening in the relationship, but they will just be absorbed. In time, you might find there's a switch. Usually one person starts to come more from power and control because that's where they're used to coming from in their relationships, and that will become more and more evident. The other person might stay the same for a while. However, once there becomes these power games and control games, you might find that even the love person starts to engage in that. They don't always want to engage, but they'll end up engaged. So people start in a love relationship and they're really in love, and then after time, one of them starts being controlling and wants to have all the power and wants to have their own way. They're really often quite selfish people. And then the other person reacts by now fighting back for the power and control, because they also want to do it their way. And that's where you'll notice the change in the relationship occurring. I found it really sad to watch it. I would see people who would meet who'd be so in love, and you'd see them at the engagement party or just when you had coffee with them, and it was so beautiful, holding hands, and you'll feel the love just going backwards and forwards from them. After time, you can see the little mini fights and the one person wanting to come from control and be more controlling and be the one who has the power in the relationship. And then later on, you can see that they're both in the power place. And I find that once people both get in the power and control place and they're coming from power and control, the love seems to diminish because they're not coming from love, they're just coming from that space. This will explain to you why it's changed in your relationship and how important this power control bucket is. You really don't want to have that kind of bucket in your relationship working full. This is a bucket which is unusual to the others. You want to empower the other person. That's what the power bucket's supposed to have in it. Empowering the other person, empowering you, not disempowering. But unfortunately, most people fill the power bucket up with power and wanting their own way. You will see this happening in your relationship slowly. First of all, there's a little fight about something. Then there's an issue about something. Then the one person becomes stubborn and won't do it and won't come from love. They'll come from wanting to have their own way. And then that will get bigger and bigger and bigger. They will want you to do what they want you to do. And if you don't do what they want you to do, you will be punished, or they will withhold love from you. It's a very simple practice. It works very well. And people get what they want, they get their own way. However, it starts to have a really negative impact on your relationship, because now it's not based on love. It's also got this terrible part of power and control, which is now going to erode it. Using power to empower someone is completely different. You are empowering them. You are giving them the choice. They have freedom within your relationship. You love them enough to let them have their way with certain things and do it their way and dress how they want to. You're not trying to control them or use power with them or overpower them. Start looking at a relationship. If you're starting to fight a lot and you're starting to fight about many things, small things often, it starts with small things quite often. You're arguing about who's going to take the rubbish out, or you're arguing about where to put the tree in the backyard, and the one person just won't negotiate and compromise. You won't find a compromise place to put the tree. Then you're starting to have power games and control games in your relationship. It's hard to avoid. I'm not saying you can completely eradicate it, because I think we all want to make and maintain control and power. It kind of makes us feel safe. But if we do this too much, it's now going to destroy the relationship, because it's all about power and control and playing these power games with people and wanting to get your own way. And then there'll be standoffs between you. And while you're coming from power and control and not empowering the other person and not loving them, the feeling will be completely different. There's almost no feeling in power and control. And the feeling that is there is usually anger. It's not love. Whereas in empowerment, there's a feeling of love for the other person. You're wanting them to be happy. You're wanting it to work for them. If you're with a person who's a controller and wants the power, you need to talk to them about this, that you need to make joint decisions and they need to start empowering you. If you are the one who's the control freak and want your own way now and playing power games, you need to stop it, because you're going to wreck the relationship. Because I think one of the things that destroys most relationships is power and control. That the one person who wants to have all the power and the control actually destroys the love relationship, and that could be them or it could be you. You don't need to control every aspect of their life. You don't need to nag them. There are many things that have nothing to do with you, how they cut their sandwich or where they go or what they do when they're out with their friends. In many ways, it's not your concern unless it's impacting directly on your relationship. And people who nag and are controlling usually end up getting a partner who's very resentful and passively aggressive. You actually build a passive-aggressive partner because maybe they won't fight back with you or they give up fighting, but they will passively aggressively fight with you. And now you're in a cold war. So what maybe had started like a hot war, now is a cold war. I see these relationships everywhere. And in the end, there becomes more distance and more space, and they become less and less loving to each other. The one who's the controller won't give you love because you won't do as you're told. The one who's being controlled won't give you love because they're protecting themselves, and they realize that the love they give is being almost squandered. I found this a very hard section to write about, but it's very important, because within power and control comes abuse, because abuse is all about power and having power in a relationship and being the one who dictates. And if you're with a partner, or if you are the person who is wanting to have power and get your own way, you will probably be abusive as well. Perhaps you are emotionally abusive, mentally, psychologically, maybe you're verbally abusive, and you might even be abusive in the physical relationship where you withhold sexually from that person. I think you really need to talk to your partner about this bucket. If you're starting to get into these power games, these control games with one another, you need to stop it and fill your bucket with empowerment, not power and control, because ultimately you're destroying the love relationship. Because love and power don't really go together, but love and empowerment do. They go together, and that's what you want to work to empower the other person and to give the other person choices and to let them live their life as much as you can without interfering in every aspect of their life. You can give advice, you can give support, but ultimately they get to choose, and whatever they choose is their choice. Look at this bucket. It's a bucket that I noticed doesn't start always at the beginning. it usually just gets more and more filled with power and control games and less with good empowering power. And it will actually start to create such a divide in the relationship because people get angry when they're being controlled and being nagged and being told what to do. If you're the one who's the control freak and nagging, stop doing it. Mind your own business. Keep out of it. The question to ask is this my stuff or their stuff? If it's their stuff, be quiet. If it's your stuff, the two of you, it's a relationship issue, then you might need to talk about it and compromise. But most of the time, control freaks just want to control everything and everybody, and it's not even their stuff. If you are being controlled, you need to talk to your partner about this, that they stop doing this, because it's going to really mess up your relationship. And it's not nice being nagged all the time or controlled. What you'll do is, in the end, you'll just stubbornly not do it. So the result that they control freaks want, they won't get. Empower your partner. Give your partner power in a good way, and don't let this bucket wreck your relationship. This is the thing that you'll notice the most, because in this bucket there isn't any love, only if you've got a bucket of empowerment, because empowerment is love. To empower someone is a loving thing to do. To overpower them is not. So I'm going to leave you with this one. It's a lot to think about. I found this a hard chapter to write about because our society is a lot to do with control and power, and people think it's good to be like this. I actually have a different view. I think empowerment is the most beautiful power, and also personal power, that we have personal power, that we make our own choices and are responsible for them as well. So I wish you luck with this. If you need help with counselling or going to see a professional because you're fighting a lot about little things or big things, go and see someone and see if you can find a better way to do it before it wrecks your relationship and spoils what was once a most beautiful love relationship. So I'm wishing you well with this one.